This is the line, it's gone low down. Hear the sound when you lie through the issues all around. From every corner, let's make it clear. The change we need is starting here.
Hi everybody, welcome to the third already episode of the Limestone Lowdown. This is your host Jared and Amanda. So to try to catch you up to where we're at today, our second city council meeting, which was not quite as explosive as the first one, but at the very beginning there was our first prepared statement read.
Just to kind of recap, this goes back to August 2024. So we're, all of our work kind of started in, researching stuff in July, and then we prepared for our first meeting, which was, I think, like the second Monday in April. So this would have been our city council meetings are second and fourth Mondays in the afternoon. So we're kind of we are up to the end of August 2024.
So the second prepared statement was basically saying that there would be no debate, that they wanted to give us all this time for us, the citizens, to basically just get up there and just say whatever we want to while they sit there like deer in the headlights and just look at us and don't respond to anything.
They didn't want to take, their quote was, they didn't want to take time away from us. They wanted to give that time back to us so that we were free to ask questions but yet get no feedback from them. And that's how it's been the last 6 months, is they literally will sit there and stare at you. That the mayor is the only one that will give any kind of response. So when you ask any questions, they look at you and ask the mayor, or give the mayor a look like, hey, will you answer? And the mayor gives, some bogus response or answer to a question.
Or scoffs in the microphone. He seems to be getting, the longer we've been going, he seems to be getting angrier. I don't really understand. I guess because he doesn't really like answering questions from the citizens.
Well, he just doesn't like to be challenged. Whenever someone's there to win an award or someone's there for, positive publicity, he's all, shaking hands, kissing babies, and then when you get down,
so he's a real good politician, is what you're saying, right?
Well, yeah,
he's been doing it long enough. He should have it perfected.
He's
right?
on year 15 of being the mayor, and he was city council before then. So
he should be ready for retirement, right?
Well, you'd think he's 80. I'd be ready to go to the house if I was 80.
Exactly. Exactly.
So in city council, I'll let Jared kind of go into one of the topics that was gone over.
So just to let you know the format, before every meeting there's an agenda published, and as our buddy Scott Marshall says every time he's there, please put more information about what these are. So basically they give you just the barest bones thing, like Hobbs Street property, Hobbs Eats property.
Purchase. I don't even think they put the price.
No, they didn't put that was after the fact. So they literally give you no information on what's going on, and it has been asked repeatedly. It's even been said, this is the 21st century. Can you guys not do something better about putting this information out there instead of just voting? You're voting on things that half the time it don't even seem like you know about, and we as a public definitely don't know about. So if some of the city council or somebody with any kind of pull is listening, guys, please, more information, the better. But anyway.
And provide the information online beforehand. One of the things Scott Marshall's put a link to where it explains what this resolution is about. What's this city? What sort of agreement is the city going into? Where's this money coming from? Actually put how much money is in there, because on the agendas, it is never it's never mentioned on the agenda how much money something is going to cost. They just always say that out loud.
Let's just say you could look at the Athens City budget, and church budgets are more detailed than that. Right. So it is crazy. But anyway, so Hobbs Street, it's for our locals. It's where the old I forget Rose. Rose, but it used to be Wits, and then Rose for years. Building was. right across from the duck pond slash what is it? The old
And it's close to the police
spring park.
And that and the police department.
It's down the street.
Right, yeah.
But so they purchased that for $600,000 and tore it down, and now it's a nice little grass lot. I think to be determined what exactly it's going to be, but I think we heard something to do with the police department.
I heard it was just going to be like their overflow parking.
Okay,
But I have
really
no idea. But $600,000
is
that was
a lot.
Well, because it had to be torn down because of the asbestos.
You're right.
that
So
was in
even
this.
more on top of that.
Yeah, so they had to pay to treat that before they tore it down.
Exactly.
So that's probably about $1 million invested in it.
It's crazy for just a little
not-
spot of land there.
So that was the voting.
Oh, so I don't know how much you guys know about Robert's Rule of Orders, but of course that's what they use. So when they're voting on something, they have to suspend the rules all the time. So there's a vote to suspend the rules, and then there's a vote on the actual agenda items. So I believe this was item X.
It was the last item.
So basically, if you're just don't have anything else to do and can't sleep at night, you can actually look up the dates on all these things and see what the agenda is, and then look at the minutes, and you can see exactly how it went down. But everybody voted yes on to suspend the rules, and then there were actually 2 no votes. To purchase this, which was kind of surprising because we've gone to 10, 12?
10 or 12, yeah.
And I believe that's the only no's that I've heard the entire time. So they do know how to vote no. It just happens very rarely.
There's no conversation like about why. It's like they are together and they all know how each other's voting. And it's basically like, 3 versus 2, so we're spending $600,000. There's no discussion. But yet they encourage you to come and encourage you to ask questions, and you can ask questions on agenda items before the meeting, and they still don't give you any answers. So it was very interesting. Again, it was our second meeting, so we didn't ever question the no because we were there more for the public comments, but we found that very interesting that it's just like yes, no, yes, no, yes, and then it's like, okay, done, 3 yeses, 2 nos, and we move on.
$600,000 gone.
Yeah. So there's no discussion amongst the city council as to why, because they already have this done before. So the city really doesn't have a say, to ask any questions or get their feedback. So after that, that was just something that was very interesting because out of all the meetings we've been to, I don't think we haven't seen one no. We have heard past meetings that there's been some no's and some discussions, and we'll kind of go over those the further we get into this, but that's the first time that we ever had heard a no. So then that takes us into public comments, and that's when the statement was read by Ms. Henry, saying that this was not going to be a debate, that there was not going to be any slanderous comments made against anyone. If they were, you were going to be asked to leave. When I got up to speak, I apologize for the way that I had came across the last time. I don't feel like I was rude or unprofessional. I was just very matter of fact on how I felt and asking questions and never getting answers. And then they wanted to give the skewed statistics on numbers in the school system, and that was it. And our councilman that is housing these people, Mr. Seibert, he was still lying about that, and I didn't like it. I mean, he completely said that he was not housing anyone here that was illegal, and that nobody had contacted him. And whether it's true or not, I still believe that he is. But my statement was merely to get up there and say, hey, I apologize for how I came across at the last meeting, and that I still wanted some clarification. And in 2 weeks, no one had responded to me. I emailed the mayor and 4 of the 5 city councilmen, and I think there was one of them, and I can't remember which one, that I could not find their email to. And so I emailed 4 of the 5 council and the mayor, and I was still asking questions like, how did these people get here? what was the plan. And I expressed in there in my statement that I had talked to the school board, and I was asking about resources, because when you bring kids in, and like I had mentioned in the last episode, that there is 22 elementary kids at the elementary school, and then there's the intermediate school, the middle school, and then there's the high school. So I don't know numbers to be exact, but let's just say roughly 100. When you add 100 extra kids, especially unaccounted growth children, where's those resources come in, especially because of the language barriers. And then if there's any other sort of like IEP or 504 issues. And I was just making sure that my children, and even for all of our American children that are here, making sure they weren't going to be losing out on resources, and making sure that we had classrooms available and etc. And she had assured me that they had already received federal funding for these migrants, which I'm assuming is money that was available under the Biden Pro program.
So that leads into the fact that if they got money before, which usually they get money in arrears, they had to know that these folks were coming. I mean, I don't know. That's just how it seems for us. And then it was funny that after all those figures came out, that the Decatur Daily ran an article, and they said almost 600 non-English speaking students and 24 Haitians. So it's just very confusing about, well, what numbers do you actually believe? And
It's their own statistics. So if you've got, because I don't think in the Decatur Daily the numbers were Haitians. I think that they just said that there was like over 500 non-English speaking kids, where the city council's was American versus or English speak. I can't remember what the statistics the kids were, but it was. But the Decatur Daily was more of a depiction, because we do have a heavy Hispanic population, but there's a lot of them, the kids that have been born here, so they are still considered Americans. But then you have the ones that are non-English speaking. And that's because they have to bring in the resources for the school. So I think that that's kind of that we just found that the Decatur Daily's statistics and numbers were more represented because they didn't have an agenda on trying to cover their bases. They weren't being politicians. They were just reporting stuff. So one of the other things that that I had mentioned about the schools was because were these kids being properly monitored? I mean, I have a huge concern that there's 300,000 kids that are reported missing, and that Border Patrol basically busts them places and drops them off with family members, and that's concerning because there's a language barrier. So who's filling out their stuff for school? Is someone making sure that they're safe? I know that Jared and I had went to a meeting, and someone had expressed that they had talked to people and that they had seen, 10 kids in an apartment with like one adult. But it wasn't even like a parent. That's not something that I had seen. I'm just kind of repeating what other people had said to me, but it was a group of about 30 people, and everyone had some different story. And we're not here to say that what we're saying is fact. Again, I have not seen any of that. I have talked to people that have said that there is a lady that brings the kids, a Haitian lady that brings these kids to Spark. Again, I don't know, but it is very alarming knowing that the amount of missing children that they've discussed in the news media and all of the kids that have went missing.
And then another crazy thing is we sat down, and this guy sat beside Amanda, and he started talking and saying that all we had ever said was it was a conflict of interest for him to be on the city council and own all these properties.
Chris Cyber,
with everything going on. And all we had ever said was conflict of interest. We had never said it was an ethics violation. Well, we had filed an ethics complaint against him. Probably
A week before.
a week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks at the most before that. And it was crazy that this guy was saying that. And we both looked at each other, and I whispered in her ear, I'm like, well, somebody sent him, because we've never said that publicly. Other than it's a conflict of interest, we've never said anything about ethics. And that's exactly what he said. And come to find out, he said his name was John Plunk. And it's like, wow, I don't have a clue who you are. And he ended up being a local lawyer. And lo and behold, he used to be on the Alabama Ethics Commission.
Till like early in 2024, his time or whatever was up. But yeah, I had no idea who he was. It was very odd. He sought me out. He came and sat down next to me and was like, hey, I was here. I heard you at the last city council meeting. You need to take the news people to these chicken plants. They're the ones that are bringing them here. And I just looked at him and I was like, no, I'm not doing it. Like, if the city council believes that it's the chicken plants, then they need to tell the news media to go towards him. Like, I got a job. But it was like he was trying to steer my interest in my direction to take it to the Pilgrim's Pride chicken plants. And if that was the case, then that's what the city council needed to do. But instead of putting this on the chicken plants, and then they didn't even do that. They just completely deflected, like that they had this same concern that we did, and that we needed to reach out to our state representatives. And so, but then I think that would have put more question and more pressure on them too, because if we were to go to the chicken plants and it were to come out, someone still had to reach out to somebody in the city, particularly Chris Seibert, because so many of his houses had Haitians in them. I mean, there's other, quote, slumlords that they're in their houses too, but they're not an elected official. And in doing the research for the last few months, we've kind of found out like they're all connected anyways. But, we just felt like he was the ringleader of all of this.
And we still believe that.
Oh, and I still wholeheartedly believe that he is the ringleader. Someone has contacted him, and it all goes back to money. I mean, the famous line, follow the money. Nobody does anything for free, good or bad. You're always, what am I going to gain from this? So then that was all that I talked about. And then, Jared, you want to talk about what you talked about?
Yes. We have a lovely neighbor, non-neighbor, that is, I guess, almost like a hoarder, and has a block building that's almost on the road beside us, and has filled it to the brim with yard sale stuff that they can continually add and subtract stuff. And then they were kind of warned, hey, that don't look too good, kind of keep it in the building, don't let it overflow. Well, then they put a shipping container kind of back in the woods a little bit hidden, and they filled that up and had overflow and everything else. And, of course, I took a picture and held it up and said, is this acceptable in the city of Athens for this to look this way? And, of course, again, silence. Nothing was ever said. Eventually, the compliance officer, they actually sent them something, and they actually went to court, and they made them clean it up. And as of today, it is still cleaned up at the moment. So I will give them credit for that. But I also called on a compliance officer that doesn't need to be controlled by the city council. And the reason I said that is because the condition of the houses that this councilman owns is atrocious. I mean, slum houses, that's not even a strong enough word for what these houses look like. They look like a stiff breeze would blow them over. That they have no insulation. Lots of them have black mold, and like I say, this is all what the clients have told us when we talk to them. And you can look up pictures of them. You can insert his home address, and the 87 properties will pop up, and you can do a Google, you know, even if you don't live here, you could do Google Maps and see pictures of them. It's like, my goodness, yards overgrown, you know, busted out windows, sometimes cardboard, but the wood over the windows. I mean, we've seen all kind of stuff. But there's, you know, he's never fined for that. There's never any citations for it. And that's why I said if it was an independent, not controlled by the city council, if it was me, they would come and fine me. They would come and write me up.
Well, our neighbors, I mean, they, at the end of the day, when we moved here to our house, the previous owners said that they had worked years trying to get them fined and things like that, and they were able to do that. I think they went through like keep Athens Limestone beautiful, but they stay on them. I mean, it did get really junky. There was, you know, a storefront that was filled like a camper, just junk. There's nobody that lives over there. It's just like a hoarder property. And they've had, I think this is like the second or third time that they've actually had to go to court about it. So they know how to enforce the law, I guess you could say, when they want to. But it's just ironic that when we've got a sitting elected official that they overlook it, they sweep it under the rug, they don't hold them accountable, but for the average person, they would. So another thing that Jared mentioned was
how the structure of the city of Athens is you have a mayor and a council of 5, and everything runs through them. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Most large cities now, you know, like the police department, the fire department, the gas, the water, etc., etc. So the other large municipalities around us have they're all their own entities, and so talking with these individuals, basically Athens is just a training ground. They come here, they get a job, they get all the certificates, they get all the expertise, and then they leave because the pay's not competitive. And everything runs through the general budget. So these folks are also all basically controlled by the city council because they're not their own entities. Everything is controlled by the city council. They appoint the chief of police, they appoint the fire chief, they appoint the department heads, etc., etc. So I think that would be us moving forward, especially as large as Athens has gotten. I think that would be a step to at least modernize. And with everything the longer we've been going, everything that they've been doing, I think that would be a great direction for the city of Athens to get this power away from the city council.
Yeah, and so like go into that. So like just to clarify, because for anyone that listens, like I don't want it, because we've said that like everything falls under the general fund, and one of the things that Ronnie Marks is like, no, it doesn't. Everything's got their own pot of money, which they do, which is allocated out of the general fund. So I'm not saying that like we're not saying that like the police department and the fire department doesn't have their own pot of money that's theirs for overtime and various things like that. I'm just saying that all of the budget comes out of the general fund that the city council oversees. And this was the first time that we had made the recommendation that it needs to be spun off. And we had put it on our, city council to work with our state representatives to spin these off, to spin starting with this school board. The school board needs to be, the school board and the superintendent need to be elected officials. Appointed. Jared has sent a few emails to our representatives. We've only gotten a response back from Arthur Orr. Uh-huh. So that's something that we're gonna reach back out to them and kind of ping that again, because it's got to go on the ballot, right? And so municipal elections are in August. So maybe if we work with people that we need to, we can get that on the ballot. But there's several other things. So that was kind of the wrap up of our second city council meeting in August of 24. The next couple episodes are not going to be right into city council because, again, we're having to kind of backtrack and catch up and recap everything, and there's going to be stuff that goes on in between there. So the next couple ones will be some off-topic things. Had a meeting with a couple with a state representative. We've had a couple meetings with him. We'll kind of recap those, and then we'll go into the library board meeting that we had Monday, January the 6th. So thanks for listening, guys, and we'll talk to you all next time.
Thank you for continuing on this journey with us, and hopefully we've gotten a little bit better since the first episode. Thank you for hanging with us. Bye.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Limestone Lowdown, where we break down the issues, keep you informed, and give you facts straight from the source. Remember, your voice matters. Your vote counts, and your community thrives when we stay engaged. Stay tuned, stay informed, and stay involved. Until next time, keep questioning, keep advocating, and keep shaping the future of the Limestone area. We'll see you on the next Limestone Lowdown.